I get a lot of emails like that every day, right?
Yeah, we do too. Like, hey, you should look into my husband's ex-wife is doing horrible things or something like that, right? You get that.
But at the bottom of his email is the name of his company, Relentless, which triggers an alarm in my head because I know that's Travis Renner's company, and I've been writing about the Renners in relation to the Preston Lord murder case and the Gilbert Goon beatings. But Mr. Kiefer doesn't say anything about Travis Renner or the Lord case in his email. He simply wants me to investigate Ashley Reynolds. Which makes me, I said, And so I endeavored to find Ashley Reynolds.
Certainly you went, okay, this guy says he's from Relentless. I got to double check and make sure. Yeah, okay, this is the name. That is the partner of the Renners. This is the guy. So now I got to find out who this Reynolds woman is.
And at the same time, her name was coming up from the other contacts in the Valley. Her name started percolating up from TikTok videos, I guess, and other things that she had been talking about. And what I heard was through other sources that she had worked with the Renners and Mr. Kiefer, and she had a story to tell. So I went and tried to find her.
All right.
And when I found her, we reached out to her. She wasn't looking for me. She didn't reach out to us in any way, shape, or form. But I contacted her, arranged an interview, arranged another interview, went to her house, finally convinced her that she could tell this story on the record.
Had it not been for that email that was saying, hey, you should look into my former executive assistant who was defrauding my company, would you have eventually come around to looking for her? Was she on your list of people I should contact? Or did this really just all of a sudden, now this is a name I know?
It was not on my radar. I suspect I would have eventually come to it.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I've been doing this 30 years.
Yeah.
I've never had anyone try to co-opt me like that. This is, and to hear Ashley Reynolds say it, this is part of a campaign to silence her. They don't want her talking about what she knows.
But did you talk to your bosses before you went out there? I mean, you got this email, and we all have somebody we answer to. Did you just say, I'm going to follow up on this, or did you go to the boss's room and go, you're not going to believe this?
It was kind of a combination of both. There was a lot of disbelief. I mean,
like,
especially when we were putting it together, once having talked to Ashley, then going back to the email and reading it and going, holy moly. Yeah.
What were those conversations early on like with Ashley? You mentioned that there was an initial interview, then another one. How did she look at you? Because she's obviously got a non-disclosure agreement that she signed with this company with that Renner and Kiefer, oversee, that they're taking care of. She works for them, single mom, 5 kids. What was the process like of getting to know her?
Well, I talked to her on the phone on an evening, I believe it was on Valentine's Day night. Mm-hmm. I'd been teaching, and I called her from the classroom, and we struck up a conversation that lasted about an hour, and then I arranged to meet her a couple of days later, and then again and again and again. But you asked me what my sense of her was. If I had to sum it up in a word, I'd say scared.
Interesting. So, okay, let me reset. Robert Anglen is joining us right now. He's one of the reporters. He and Ellen of Santa Cruz have been following the Gilbert Goons. They're the ones that connected the dots on the different assaults and teen violence in the East Valley and brought it to the attention of the police, who had not really connected the dots yet. Now they find this alleged whistleblower who says that this guy who's already been on your radar because his one son, the adult son, is kind of known as being goon-related. The father, his house was raided. The mother lost ties with her franchise group that was running her gym. So they've been on the radar before, and now all of a sudden we've got this person that is connected to the business who is saying there was stuff going on behind the scenes. So when it comes to what's happening behind the scenes, Ashley Reynolds tells you, listen, it started, the day after the Preston Lord beating?
Shortly after the beating, the night of the beating, she says the cover-up began, and it was...
And this before he had even died, right? I mean, he was in the hospital for a little while.
That's what she says.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm assuming you talked about this
We did.
yesterday.
We did,
But
yeah.
her tale is they took steps to get the kid out of town. They didn't want people to see the injuries on his hand. They moved him to Show Low. They began taking steps to protect business interests by divesting Renner from the business for businesses. And Ashley Reynolds said she was privy to all of it, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly.
So my question here is, because you followed up with a couple of different sources here. One was the Queen Creek Police, right? You talked with them. And did they verify her story at all? Did they validate what she had to say?
Well, I think part and parcel to being able to tell this story was to corroborate what she said.
Yeah.
So what do? We have this version of events. I don't know if she's telling the truth or not. She's believable, and I took some steps to ensure that. But we thought, okay, we'll take this to the Queen Creek Police. They're investigating the homicide. They're responsible for it. Can you tell us if you've talked to her? She says you have. The police chief confirmed that, yes, she had talked to detectives, that she reached out to detectives and they interviewed her. So, okay, you interviewed her. Here's the story she's telling us. What can you say about it? And the chief agreed that her story corroborated information they already had. He said it did not contradict information, it corroborated it. And that was on the record.
And that was the first time you'd really heard anything like that too, right?
Yeah,
from the police.
It is the first it is the first account that police have acknowledged any version, it's even a sliver of a version about what happened on the night of that attack. And for them to say her version corroborated information they already had was the first time I'd heard that.
All right. Very compelling. Robert, sit tight. Robert Anglen, one of the authors of the entire Gilbert Goons saga with the Arizona Republic, he and Elena Santa Cruz, who's still on assignment today and unable to join us today. I want to follow up in just a few moments because it sounds to me like after talking with them, you believe what she has to say. And Robert's going to answer more about what happened with this Ashley Reynolds, this whistleblower in the East Valley. But are there reasons not to believe what she has to say? Robert Anglen joins us in studio. Robert and his partner, Elena Santa Cruz, who is not in studio today, she's on assignment, have been following the Gilbert Goons case. And, Joe, we discussed yesterday the story that they had in the Arizona Republic, and we saw it on AZ Central. And it was about this whistleblower in the East Valley, Ashley Reynolds, who worked for a couple of guys, Adam Kiefer and Travis Renner. Renner's son is one who allegedly had something to do with Preston Lord's beating.
One of his sons under the age of 18.
Correct.
One of his juvenile sons.
And again, all of this is alleged, but I can tell you what is not. And that is that Renner's house was raided on November 6th, if I have my dates correct, Robert. Yeah. And they took out a bunch of, we assume, evidence. There were arrests made of the older son for drug charges. He was also involved in some other goon attacks. And that Travis Renner himself, the business owner, was arrested for drug charges to go with that. Now, the business partner, Kiefer, then sends an email to our guest, Robert, saying, hey, our executive assistant has been embezzling money from us, tens of thousands of dollars. Well,
should look into this.
You should look into her. Now, had it not been for the fact that he sent Robert an email, Robert maybe never even would have known that Ashley Reynolds needed to be talked to. Come to find out, good thing he did. So Reynolds says these guys have been covering up the son's involvement from the beginning. And then he double-checked. Robert did. Checked with the Queen Creek Police, and they said, we don't see anything in here that contradicts anything that we found. So it sounds like she's telling a bit of truth here. Looking for more information, Robert reaches out to this guy, Adam Kiefer. And here's what you wrote in your story. I'm going to quote it back to you. It says, on February 23rd, email to the Republic, Kiefer said he has no connection to the allegations involving the Renner family, but the ongoing legal situation prevented him from providing details. I'm confused, Robert. Maybe you can help me. He has no connection to any allegations, but because of the situation, can't provide details. So if you have no connection, what details would you have to provide? It's like, hey, Joe, you have any connection to Taylor Swift? And Joe's like, no. Okay, but can you share details of that non-relationship? Like, no, of course not. Did I miss something?
No, I think you've summed it up fairly well.
Wanted to make sure.
But again, we kept following up with the guy and eventually sent him these 26 questions that where at any point he could have said, no, this isn't true.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. And now he says he was shocked by the allegations in the story, shocked and disappointed. And I hate disappointing people.
I know you do. Yeah.
But it's kind of preposterous to believe he was shocked because we told him what was going to be in the story.
And you gave him a warning before that, too. You reached out to the PR agency that had suddenly injected themselves in the middle of it.
Over and over.
Okay, so, Robert, one of the things that Ashley Reynolds said was that the beating may have been tied to some sort of initiation. Can you elaborate on that? Because this is one of the questions that we have looming over this entire story. Initiation into what?
That is her claim, and she doesn't have a lot of detail there, and I want to be upfront about that.
Okay.
But she says that based on the conversations that Kiffer and Renner were having, they described the beating as part of an initiation. Police will not talk about this level of detail. They will not confirm or deny that part. That's a piece of information the police chief said he can't talk about. But what she described was that Renner's 17-year-old son wanted to be part of a beating, which, by the way, have been carried out by the Gilbert Goons all over the valley or Southeast Valley for many months, and one of these gang attacks, and that's what may have happened in this case. That Lord was, we still don't know. She doesn't know and won't say why he was the target, but that Renner wanted to be involved in some kind of initiation, and that would be to this gang, the Gilbert Goons.
Have you heard or learned anything from others that you can share in terms of why Preston Lord could have been targeted or what the heck could have been going on there? Because, I mean, it's pretty easy to draw some through lines. Obviously, we know there is this underage gentleman here who is Travis Renner's son, who we have this whole, cover-up going on. But then we've talked about one of his older sons who we know who was tied to the Goons. So, yeah, it's easy to say, hey, he wanted to hang out with his brother and be a part of this. Like, have you heard anything from anybody that you can say, I'm confident that several people have went on the record and said this is what was going on?
The answer is no. And I won't speculate about it, but she absolutely says and that she overheard these conversations and participated in conversations about it being an initiation.
I want to follow up on that. We're tight on time here, Robert, and so we're going to check on headlines in a moment. But the word initiation to me, I'm not a lawyer, but it feels like that may be one of the criteria that the county attorney is looking at in this entire investigation, and everything that seems to be looming overhead. Is this part of something broader? We're talking with Robert Anglen now. Robert is one of the reporters at the Arizona Republic that has been following and has really broken the story and led the conversation about teen violence, specifically in the East Valley, but around the Gilbert Goons. We had a whistleblower come forward who says that her boss, one of her bosses, Travis Renner, and his partner, her other boss, Adam Kiefer, asked her to help in covering up Renner's son's involvement in Preston Lord's murder. So the Queen Creek police say that they wrapped up their investigation, Robert, into the Preston Lord's murder. And if my dates are correct, and I believe they are, December 28th is when they said they wrapped that up.
Well, they would take exception with the word wrapped up. They're still investigating, but they referred 7 people for criminal charges, a mixture of adults and juvenile.
Fair. All right, so we are officially now, today's 28th, right? We are 2 months later from that initial referral.
Handing off of the charges, yep.
So that means that the county attorney's office spent more time reviewing the investigation than they did initially before they made referrals, because they felt that there was probable cause. And unlike Gilbert, they referred it to the county attorney before they made the arrest, which is creating some confusion on our part anyway, as far as the county attorney saying they're in constant communication with the police departments. So how are we supposed to, as the public, exercise some patience in this regard? You're discovering things now 4 months later that obviously they've known for a while, because you went to them and they said, yeah, that corroborates what we know. Should we, as the people, start to feel frustrated that there haven't been more arrests made? This has got to be, I'm frustrated from the outside looking in.
You have to separate the Gilbert Goon attacks from the Queen Creek homicide investigation. I have reported on homicides. I was going to say I've been involved in them, but I haven't.
Yeah, good.
I don't do homicide as a hobby.
Yeah.
But I have reported on homicides in my career that have taken years, sometimes decades, and the police continue to investigate. They continue to come at them. So for a homicide investigation to still be underway 4 months after the killing, I don't think that's at all unusual.
Okay.
That's my opinion, my assessment based on my professional work. And frankly, I think 2 months, 4 months still being reviewed is not a long time at all. And especially in this case where you have allegedly multiple attackers, a party where hundreds of kids were congregating when the attack happened, a frenetic, chaotic, moving event. It does not surprise me at all that police are having to wade through all of that material, whatever it is they've gotten from that, the witnesses, the phone seizures, the search warrants. Not only that, but then they have to, and the police chief talked about this, the conflation with all the social media and all the rumors coming up that drive tips that they then have to look at. I imagine they've had thousands of tips.
Chris and I are talking with Robert Anglen, the investigative reporter, one of the people who are covering the Gilbert Goons and what's going on out in the East Valley. He's from the Arizona Republic. And Robert, I'm with you on all of that the police need to take their time. Sometimes this does take years. But Chris brought up a great point yesterday of, does the presence of a now whistleblower change any of that? You've now got somebody coming public who has said, hey, here's what was going on. You reported on what this lady allegedly said, and the police corroborated. So if you're the Maricopa County attorney, do you sit there and go, wow, what we're going to charge or indict or bring people in on, it's already being put out there. Do we need to get in front of what's gone on?
I have no specific knowledge of that, but I imagine that would be part of the conversation over at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and whether or not her allegations change the landscape at all. If what Queen Creek Police said is, that they corroborated what she said, that means that, and the chief said it, that they already had this particular information, or what she brought to the table was something they could already verify. We don't know specifically in the level of detail what that is, but in broad strokes, they're saying her version of events does not contradict them. I would say that the broad, the umbrella of that is she says there was a cover-up. They took the boy out of town. They wanted to prevent people from seeing an injury on his hand that he sustained in an accident, and that they tried to pin this on another teenager. Those would be the broad strokes.
Okay.
But when I asked the specific details, they wouldn't.
They can't give those to you.
Correct.
Robert, the last thing, we talked about the initiation. We talked about the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, maybe what's taking them so long. Is an initiation an indicator that they're looking into a potential criminal street gang? We know that they've talked to us about trying to identify whether it's a street gang. Is there a possibility, in your experienced opinion, that they're trying to determine, does this qualify as a street gang, and then be able to press forward with charges that are street gang related versus individual?
More than just the 7 that were referred, they could potentially go after everybody who is connected to the Gilbert Goons if it's a street gang.
And not necessarily just the Preston Lord murder, but the other stuff as well.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the
separation between those two cases, right?
correct.
Yeah.
And just Queen Creek has done what it's done for the homicide, but we've had another conversation about what Gilbert police haven't done in regard to these attacks for more than a year, until we started putting those pieces together. The question of a criminal street gang is at the county attorney level. Rachel Mitchell, the county attorney, has said that that's going to be addressed when they make the charges, so we can assume that that's on the table over there being discussed.
All right. I just feel like when Reynolds, the whistleblower, says that this was part of an initiation, boy, that sets off an alarm bell in my mind. Like, initiating for what? I mean, you get initiated for a street gang,
right? But what and that's, I guess, one of the overarching questions of this whole thing: is it a street gang, Was there a monetary component? I mean, the typical things that go into gangs, territory, drugs, money, power, those don't seem to be a factor in the cases we've examined. It's more of, we had fun, we had a gang, we got together, we beat the crap out of people, and that's our gang.
Yeah. Interesting. So how does that translate from a legal standpoint as far as organized crime or not?
Yeah, you'd have to get a lawyer to answer that one.
Well, this is why I turn to the reporters, because they're doing a heck of a job. Robert Anglen and his partner, Elena Santa Cruz, again, who couldn't be with us. We'll get her in here the next time. Keep up the good work. You guys are doing amazing work on this.
Thanks for your interest.
It's not dying, my friend. It's here for a long time.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.